Tanya, good morning.
Good morning.
How's your week been?
Yeah, good. I feel like a blink and it goes very, very fast. How about yourself?
Yeah, I was out at 10 o'clock last night. Woke up at 6. Ran around, did this or that, did a meeting there. But I think the importance of having me time and a good night's sleep is very important.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and thank you for sharing the answers in sort of the questionnaire. What's more important, making an impact or the family side of things, or is it more coming together as one?
Oh, that's a good question. I think this is something that I kind of wrestle with because I have so much drive to create change in the world. And then having a 1-year-old and a husband that's finished, they take up a lot of my time. So I wrestle with that a lot of how I can do everything and how I can do everything with an impact. And lately I've been feeling like I'm failing because I feel like I'm not giving enough time to my family, and I'm feeling like I'm not giving enough time to my personal goal commitments.
Are you able to somehow prioritize and allocate time to each area in your life? Or obviously you and I, Tanya, we're both parents. It is tricky to balance it all. You did talk about having another child. Is there a solution to it? Or will one person have to compromise?
Yeah, I think that there is a solution. It just, like you mentioned, there needs to be a whole lot of prioritizing. I didn't speak and help and support, which is, I'm a super independent person, like super independent to my own detriment. Like, it would be sometimes easy if I just said, hey, can you help me do this? But instead of doing that, I'll just do everything myself. So delegation is hugely important with people you trust. Like, obviously in a business perspective, I'm much easier to say to someone, hey, do this. And if they don't do it perfectly, then I'm like, okay, it's all right, I can fix that, or we can alter that. But in the parenting perspective, constantly have this guilt, like if I hand off that task to someone else, or if I get someone to mind Anders, or great example, we've been trying to get him into daycare. And the idea of someone else trusting someone else with your child is a little scary for a new parent. And so we went to orientation around 7 times. And
wow, 7 times.
Yeah, normally kids go to orientation like once or twice and they're okay and they're able to be left. Anyway, we got to the last day and we got out of the car and he looked at the gate and already started crying. And he was like grabbing me and he was like pointing to get out. So I was like, all right, it's like we're going to have to not do that for a while. And it's funny because one of the ladies there was like, you have to be a tiger, mum. You just have to let him cry. It doesn't matter if he's upset, and just go, and we'll handle it. And I couldn't handle that. I said, oh, well, sorry, I'm thank you for the tips, but that's not my parenting style. And ever since then, he was more clingy and nervous to even go to my mum. So
wow.
Then it's like, a week, 2 weeks is taken up. That would have been taken up, like that I would have had towards business and impact, creating activities. If he was able to just go in, it was only once a week. I was only going to be living there for about 6-7 hours, but we couldn't get past 2 hours. So, so then going back and forth to the daycare for those times. Yeah, just I think that if you have systems and processes in place, you're able to do it. But I think when you're a first-time parent, it becomes a little trickier because you don't know what you don't know.
Does your husband feel the same way, or?
He's done it before, but he was I guess he's quite nervous. I think he's more nervous because he knows that, because he's like the opposite, because he knows more, he's more nervous about all things that can go wrong. And my stepdaughter was telling me that she also didn't go to daycare. She wouldn't go to anyone else till she was about 6. So I laughed. I was like, oh, great.
Wow.
I'm gonna have to get an au pair or a nanny in the house so that he can see me. Like even now, he's going with his dad and screaming till he gets distracted.
It's do you find that you're able, so obviously Tanya and I, you know, ever since I've known you, you're very strong. You got to get it done. You want that control. Correct me if I'm wrong. Do you think you can apply that to being a parent, or well, as you're saying, you are finding it's tricky?
Yeah, definitely finding it tricky, and I think that I'm like doubling down on my control because I want to control
doubling down.
Because like I'm like controlling everything. Where if I had released control earlier, then Anders would have known what it was like not to be with me the entire day. You know, for the last 8 months, and you know, I'm with him during the day, and when he's sleeping, I just quickly get on my computer and working, and then I'm doing things over the night. So that was getting a bit to a point where I was like, I'm not going to survive if I'm if I'm staying up all night working and then trying to do things during the day with Anders. It's not really safe for me driving or concentrating or yeah. So
it's hard. It's hard.
It's hard. I think it's hard, and I think that but it is like in a way it's getting easier now.
Brilliant.
That I've like made a few. Well, I don't know if it's a mistake, but it kind of is a mistake that I didn't go to daycare earlier, or I didn't. But then again, it's hard because now I think about it. I forgot. I don't know how I totally forgot. It was COVID, so a lot of daycares were closed for a long time, and so I didn't even have that help. So funny now that the war's on. It's like COVID didn't even exist.
It's I know you and I, Tanya, we met up a couple of weeks ago. I think I'm in a position where there's always going to be something happening, and I try to just not pluck it out in a negative way. It's not important to me, right? But I find that it's very important to maintain my inner peace with so much happening out there. It's hard, but like I said, you know, you are seeing a bit of improvement, right? So I'm curious, Tanya, you know, is it a trust thing, or is it more you can't let go?
I would say trust.
Interesting.
I can let go of my, after I've had this experience, he now goes to my mum's 2 days a week, and I'm totally fine with him there. Like I trust that they have a good time and doesn't cry. She's the only other person that he'll go to. And yeah, I think previously I wouldn't like the response would have been I'm unable to let go. And I want to be able to, I guess, out of fear, just control as much as I can so that like everyone's happy. But that is, you know, unrealistic. So
I think it can be realistic depending on who you are. I don't think there's any sort of right or wrong way to approaching it. So I'm curious, Tanya, would a childcare center be able to gain your trust somehow?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah. I mean, I think they definitely could if I saw the response. Like Anders would be my lead. So he went there and he was okay, and he went to someone and he was like felt good. Then he don't like I'd totally be fine with that. And then if he was like to me, you know, bye, and like happy that I just left, then I was like, okay, cool, he's fine, he's happy, he's safe. They're gonna take great care of him. But he was beyond himself. Like he was like screaming, like I've never even heard him scream that way. The way he screamed when he was going to the.
You brought me back to my son Theo. Probably we put him to childcare very early, probably 6 months, 6 to 7 months, because my wife wanted to go back to work because she was just itching to go back into it. And her personality is very much like yours, Tanya. Very strong. I need to get it done. Quite rational in a way, and tries to overlay a business side of things to approaching it. And there's no right or wrong, right? And I remember doing drop off probably in the first week. It was terrible. I think you don't know parenting until you become a parent. And
Yeah.
I feel you when you brought me back to those first week where I was crying.
Me too. When I left him, because I was like, I'm so strong. I'm gonna be totally fine. I've got this. I'm like marching in there. I'm gonna just drop him off and leave and be fine. I dropped him off and I left and I called my mum and I was like, I'm not okay. And then I was driving and then I sat in the car seat and then I realized that he wasn't in the pack and then I started crying and I was like, oh my gosh, he's going for an hour and a half. And then he's gonna scream and like want your attention all day. Just like literally enjoy that you've got an hour and a half to yourself. And I couldn't. I was just like trying to distract myself and I got a coffee.
I love the honesty, Tanya. It's I don't know how I did it. I literally dropped it and ran because I knew that. So basically my wife gave me the task of drop off because she knew she couldn't do it.
She's a smart lady. Very smart.
So I basically dropped him off. I literally ran out the door, got in the car and just drove. It was hard.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. And because the center was so busy that's like, I think where I went wrong because I was staying around for too long. Like he could see me and then when he see me, he's like, I don't want to stay. But I think that 6 months is a really good time. Although it's really difficult then, I would imagine that they get to get used to it earlier.
I don't know whether you do it later or earlier.
He like understands. Like at 6 months, he would have been like, "Oh, I'm upset that my parents aren't with me."
Yeah.
But he would forget it quickly. But he didn't forget it. Like he would be like playing with something for 2 seconds, and then he'd be like, "Oh my gosh, where's my mum?" And then he would be distracted with like, "Oh, here's some toy or here's some sand," and then he's like screaming again, like, "Mummy, come back."
Oh, it's I think the childcare workers, they try to basically, like what you said. If you're in your car, for example, and Anders is with a childcare worker, they would go, all right, Anders, here's item 1, here's item 2, here's item 3, constantly keep him distracted.
Yeah.
I think it's just going to take time, but at the same time, every child's different.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know how they do it. I was like, I would be crying if the kids are crying for this long, but yeah, I mean, I mean, obviously I chose to be a parent and I love it so much. And I know he's only little for a short time. And I know I've got this burning desire to, with all my businesses to create impact.
Yeah.
So it just gets a little push and pull.
Tell me about this impact. You and I have been talking about it. The word impact could mean many different things, right? And I don't think I've actually asked you what your definition of impact is. What is your definition of impact?
So my definition of impact is within my business and even within my life is creating a space where I'm serving my clients, customers, or anyone that I'm coaching at the highest level to get them, an unbelievable result in the shortest time possible. So we spoke about this when we were together.
Yeah, feel free to share a bit more about this business, Tanya. I'd love to learn more.
So
and I'm sure the audience would love to learn more too.
When we met, I think it was 2018. So I'd already had Jack, which is my wellness company for, I was still, a few years old. But recently I've left my Fortune 500 company in healthcare. Mm-hmm. Again, and the reason being, I would love that. So in that, I was able to make an unbelievable impact with the products that I was selling. I was selling to neurosurgeons, plastic surgeons, ENT, oral maxillofacial surgeons, some dentists, essentially anyone from the neck up. And the products that I would sell, I would see an immediate impact. So for example, if someone was getting orthodontic surgery and, a few weeks later, you see the immediate impact on their entire facial structure. If they're a neurosurgery patient, maybe it's a trauma or they've had a huge tumor, the implant that you'd put in, you see immediate impact. So I've been conditioned for the last 10 years to, in a lot of sales, like you make that sale, you make that transaction and you see zero impact, you see zero change, or you don't even know how you've supported someone's life. But I've fallen in love with that process. So I fall in love knowing that what I was selling was serving at the highest level, that it was changing people's lives and saving people's lives. And so I was offering a product all the time that had an unbelievable purpose. And so when I left my medical device role, I was moving into coaching, and I first started to coach in a path that wasn't so impactful. You know, a lot of coaches, a lot of people's perception on coaches is like it's only life coaching, and you're sitting there and you're just talking about people's problems, and it's all about hippy dippy spirituality. And you know, a lot of people think that. And, you know, I got into, when I first started, that's kind of the section I like fell into immediately, and I was like, oh, this doesn't feel right. This is not where I want to be. This is not what I want.
A bit maybe airy fairy in a way.
Yeah, there was no structure, or there was no like, you couldn't see the process. You couldn't see the process of like where you'd be taking someone from and to. And then I started to coach athletes out of transition into the business world. And that has a much more process-driven coaching structure. So, for example, you do help with the emotional side of things. Obviously, coaches aren't therapists, so anything intense, you always make sure that you're talking to your clients to go and seek professional help on that level. But the guidance is, you know, actionable steps, and to do programs that are like, if you take this action, you're going to get this result. And usually by taking this action, you then move on to the next step. And where people need to be coached the most, and I mean, I'd say in sport, I knew what the next step was, but sometimes you need a little accountability.
Because, sorry to cut you off, Tanya, because you yourself, you played basketball at the highest level.
Yeah, so I was a professional for a few years. I left sport because there wasn't a very good income structure. So playing professional sport in Australia, you don't get paid very well. And so I chose to leave that industry. And I've always had a hard time with that transition process and the identity shift from being an athlete. You know, for 10 plus years, I was an athlete. I'm very tall. I am sitting on a high chair, so it doesn't look like I'm even taller than what I am. But that was my identity. Everyone would be like, oh, you're the basketballer, or like, how's this? And the only question anyone would ever ask me was around basketball. So then when I was no longer a basketball, I was kind of like, well, who am I? Who am I? What do I like? What do I like? I don't even know, because I spent 30 plus hours a week playing sport.
Doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, exactly. You know, watching film, getting recovery, being with my teammates. And then when I wasn't doing that, I was like sleeping because your body's exhausted. So that stopped, and you kind of like, what am I good at? What am I here for? What's going on? So that process was really difficult, and that's where a lot of athletes, it's really sad, they lose their way. You know, one of the young men that I went to University of Hawaii with, where I was a student athlete, last year, it was maybe the years go so fast. It's either 2020 or 2021. He was the Heisman Trophy winner, like, and an unbelievable athlete. He overdosed on drugs. He had a long history of prescription abuse after playing sport, because he just couldn't find his way in the world.
It's sad, isn't it? Yeah.
It's so sad. And then I had another friend that committed suicide from basketball last year, and in 2020, and that was difficult. And I kept seeing that, you know, I've heard these stories, I've seen it, and that's where I was like, okay, wow, now I get it. I know how to put my business acumen and commercialization into the processes and the structure where these people can take that information and implement it immediately, you know, from a level of understanding of their identity, like who are they and how can they move forward. And I love that part, but I really missed the healthcare workers. So I loved working with healthcare workers. I love their intellect. I love their humors. I love, you know, how playful they are and how hard they work. And there was another element to my business that I was like, okay, well, that side fulfills me from an impact side, from my sporting career and my pool of like, I want to give back and help where I was. And I was able to create a relatively, some may say, relatively good structure for myself and get into a really good corporate job and stay there for quite some time. And then that's when, maybe about 5 months ago, 4 months ago, I then took the process that I've been using and looking at how I can implement it into a healthcare sector. So the
Wow.
second part of the business is working with dentists. So helping them grow their practices through a simplified system that, that scales. So helping them scale their business so they have more time and freedom.
Well, why dentists, Tanya? I never really asked you why dentists in particular.
Well, as a healthcare practitioners, they're one of the highest practitioners that are prone to suicide.
Wow, really?
They're the practitioners that struggle the most with identity, because a lot of dental practice owners, here in Australia and in the US, I've been doing a lot of research on this. They have one facade of who they are to everyone else, driving a nice car, having a nice house, having the practice, but not feeling great about themselves on the inside, and kind of like a duck underwater. So they may have like huge mortgages that are paying for those cars and those houses, and they're like stressing every single month how to get over, how to make sure that they're paying that imposter syndrome.
That lifestyle, maybe, so to speak.
That lifestyle they're supposed to have as a dentist. And they work so much, and it's quite funny. So you have this part of the healthcare sector, you have this part of the community where they spend and dedicate this is where I see the comparisons. They dedicate their entire life to their profession, learning, the tactical skills, the educational, the didactics. They're doing all of these things every weekend or every second weekend. They're dedicating their time to research or education. Yet no one teaches them business practices.
Interesting.
And it can make, be so much easier if you just have, the cheat sheet, the fast path to success. So there are some dentists out there that know how to do it on their own. But very, very rarely has a dentist double majored in business and understand, business foundations and how to make their practice run really smooth and have fun while they're doing what they love and serving, they serve their community at the highest level. Teeth are an extremely important part of our body. Again, another thing that you can make an impact with their, they're making an impact with their patients every single day so quickly.
You do.
Veneers or this is so cute. There was a guy that's like local in this area. He works at the local store, and we've all been wearing masks for a long time. And I could see him smiling under his mask. I was like, oh, he seems so happy today. He's like, yeah, I finally got my teeth.
Lovely.
And I was like, what? And he was like, I finally got my teeth. I've been waiting for so long for them to be replaced. And I haven't been smiling because I didn't have my teeth. And I was like, and he was just he was like a different, I always thought he was like a little bit cranky, but I didn't realize it was because I guess he had some issues with his teeth, and he was like waiting for some government grant to come in. And so I'm just like, if I can make an impact for people that are making such a huge impact in the community, then I get to make an income, have a lot of fun, and
love it, Tanya.
We can grow it. So
brilliant.
I guess that's what it means to me, like impact. Impact to me is like seeing like an immediate or the result of whatever it is that you're doing. I mean, obviously I have the intelligence and I have the resources to just go sell whatever.
Anything really. I'm sure you have the capability to really do anything.
But I don't want to, because it's like, I don't know, it just doesn't drive me. Whereas this drives me to get up in the morning and get excited. And
it's important, hey? You need this. To me, the more I talk to you, the more I'm feeling this deeper mission, and that's really giving you that oomph. I love it.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know if you're a spiritual man or if anyone's on here, but it is. Don't mind me saying it, but I was
go for it.
having quite a difficult time, and I was praying, and I was like, God, I don't know what my message and my mission is. Like, come, please use me, because I don't want to just be like 50 years old, waking up being like, what did I do? How can I help anyone? Like, what am I doing in this life? And these things are just like it's like these little seeds that have been left on the ground to follow the path. So I'm having a lot of fun. It might sound quite strange being a business consultant or business coach to two very separate parts of the community, but yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It's interesting, Tanya, where you mentioned that when you were at that previous medical device company, it conditioned you That's an interesting word you use. Conditioned you to run a structured process where you saw the journey basically from delivery all the way to an outcome, because you saw that impact, didn't it? And now you're applying that, whether it be dentists looking to improve their business practices to help them bring back their own identity, or likewise athletes in terms of getting back into the real world. It's interesting, conditioning. So is it because when you're at that previous company, that's what gave you that sort of clue, or have you always wanted to really make that impact?
I've always wanted to make an impact and a good income, obviously. One of the reasons that I chose this company is that I knew that they were super successful and also doing some really cool things in innovation and how they were helping people. I actually went for my first job interviews. I went for orthopedics, and I'm so happy that I didn't get it. So you know how they always say, sometimes the best thing that can happen is you don't get that job. So I was so disappointed, and I was like, oh. And then they called me up and they said, hey, there's a role within this in the CMF, so the craniomaxillofacial team and neurosurgery team, that you might really like and be perfect for. And I was like, seriously, like, who do I have to meet? Like, how do I get there? So I ran and because when I first started, I couldn't say craniomaxillofacial properly because I was like, oh my gosh, it seems so hard to say. But then, I mean, obviously, you just break it down.
Now you're rolling at it.
Exactly, I've said it enough times. So yeah, but I think the conditioning part is the same as sport, and I think that Tony Robbins says success leaves clues, and it's very true. So that conditioning, that process, that where you've started from and being able to see from A to Z, like this is how I want to be at the end of this process. How do I get there? And I think that's where coaching comes in to play in how you can make the biggest impact, is being able to take a disheveled mind in a way, or someone that may have complex thought processes, or there's like a lot going on, and then being able to like compartmentalize it into the processes and the steps to get the outcome. So this is how I have seen how my coaches have coached me. I've always had what I'm thinking within my mind, but it was completely disheveled. Like it was so all over the place. And then they'll ask me questions where I'm able to then put it into different brackets. I'm like, oh, okay, so this goes here.
Is that a framework or something, Tanya, or that they can? Is that a framework that these coaches apply to get you to organize your thoughts? So that's interesting, actually.
I don't think on purpose. So
okay,
it's some people have asked me questions. But I guess it's like how my brain works. So some people, I mean, I guess they would have a framework, but though there's frameworks that are like super rigid, and then you're not actually going to get, because it's like, oh, you have to tick a box in all of these sections. My sister's a coach, and she's just asked me questions before, like 2 or 3 questions, that has been able to me to speak my thoughts out loud, and then I'm like, oh, okay, this goes here, and this is how these are the steps I need to go.
Like you said, you're compartmentalizing each one.
So yeah, the framework or the section is, I guess because I have a few different coaches, it's like not all within the same spectrum.
Interesting. And now you're able to apply what you've learned into your businesses.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess all
very cool.
Have their own framework or structure or processes. But yeah, it's a lot of fun learning how to do it. And before I would get the confidence part of it. So before working in a really high stress, I guess going back to my job, my role in healthcare, it was high stress, high pressure all the time. Like I might get a phone call at 11 o'clock at night saying that there needs to be some kind of a kit in a hospital that might be 1 hour away. And then I need to call, the on-call person to make sure that they've got the kit. Then the driver has to make sure it gets there. Then I need to micromanage the steps to make sure that, sterilization sterilizes the kits. and then that no one loses it or no one not sees it and it's in a box because there's a patient on the table at 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. and they need that to be served. That might
so that impact is that direct?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've had a surgeon call me before at like 8 p.m. on a Sunday and said he needed the kit on Monday morning, and the kit wasn't in the warehouse, so I had to go find the kit, take it to the warehouse for them to check it all in, make sure I had all the plates and screws that I needed in it. Then I waited at there to then drive it to the hospital, and then the hospital, it's called CSSD, the sterilization department, wasn't open, so I was sleeping in my car until I was able to give it to them. Then I was like, this needs to be done immediately. There's a patient on the table at this time. And it's funny because a lot of the surgeons have no idea at all. You're like running around and they're like, oh,
they just see this end product. They don't know what Tanya has done before that to get them.
Some of them do know how much the sales reps, are going crazy to get what they need, because they know that if they don't get it, I guess where it is it's more than just a sale. It's more than just a sale. Like, yes, if I don't get that kit on the table, I don't get paid. But when I'm running around Sydney, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking that that patient on the table is someone's, mother, brother, sister, cousin, and they need that specific product to get the result that they want.
Wow.
So that's the drive part. So being able to get up, at all times of the day, being on call all weekend, doing all that, is knowing that the product that you have is serving a purpose.
Do you miss that? Or
I miss my surgeons, but it's really hard to do for a long period of time, because you're constantly stressed because you don't know when your phone's going to ring, and you need to make sure you always have your phone, and so you're anticipating all the time that someone's going to call you, and you're constantly thinking of what could go wrong and your risk mitigation 7 days a week. So
you're basically on alert.
On alert, exactly. So even when you get the product into theatre, you're then worried if you're there in theatre with the surgeon, and the surgeon may have never used a kit before, or it's a registrar, or it's someone who doesn't really know it properly, but they wouldn't give you the time before they started operating to explain it. Then in the exact moment that they are using it, they like yell at you that they need you to give them the perfect answer that their mind can process so they can do the job. So it was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot. But yeah, it's hard to do for a long period of time.
Interesting, Tanya. Interesting.
That's why it's really important that surgeons and healthcare professionals take breaks, and they are themselves able to switch off, because in the last few years with COVID, it's been crazy, and it's not just the surgeons, it's also the nurses. They're under so much pressure all the time, and they, a nurse might have been in a neurosurgery case, and then the next minute she's in a hand case, and obviously in a hand case, if something goes wrong, I mean, obviously you don't want anything to go wrong, but if someone puts like a bone back together and your hand a little bit wrong, you're going to survive. Like, you're not going to die.
Mm.
You give the wrong equipment to a neurosurgeon who puts something in someone's brain, then that's, you know what I mean? The risk is a lot higher of things going wrong. So that conditioned me. I mean, I guess it fueled my drive. I've always been pretty driven, so it fueled my drive to always do the best job at all times.
Wow,
it's stressful.
Stressful. I really appreciate you opening the door, Tanya. Wow, it's amazing. You mentioned success leaves crumbs. You also talked about the power of spirituality in your life, how you ask God, what do I need to do? Is that the same? Success leaves crumbs, God leaving you signs. Is that the same thing?
For me, no. Because, for example, I guess this is a good example. When I started playing basketball, I couldn't catch a ball. That's not an exaggeration. I literally couldn't catch a ball. And my dad used to say that I used to run like Gumby. And I wasn't, It's like really long, like running funny.
Gotta love dads and the motivation.
I know. Well, it actually did work because I was like, screw you, Dad, watch how far I'll go. I think that's exactly what I did.
He knew it all along.
Yeah, he did the right thing. So then I was like, so anyway, I always remember it. So I was excited when I went to high school in the US, and I was excited I got to play and practice every day. I still didn't at all like put any clues together, like this is how you get better or potential. Like I only went because I wanted to play basketball every day. I didn't go because I thought I'd get a basketball scholarship to university. I didn't even really know what that meant. When the coaches were calling me from university, I was like, I don't really get what's going on.
Yeah, you were still young back then.
Yeah, I arrived in America 3 days after 9/11, which is crazy. I remember
Crazy, wow.
pulling out. Like I remember watching, like I walked downstairs from where I was living and I was like, this is crazy. Like I can still remember that. I still remember walking down and I was like, what movie premiere was this? I was like, that's weird.
Wow.
Yeah, but anyway, so I got my scholarship to go to the US to college, and I was I was tall, like I'm tall, I'm 6'3", and I remember looking around, and someone said, you know, if you want to get better, you always want to play against the best person. So I went to the best person in the team, and I said, how can I learn to be as good as you? Like, what do I need to do? And I just asked that question, and she said, well, these are the things that I do all the time. This is da da da. So then I just modeled myself after her.
Yeah, tell me, Tanya, what were they? I'm curious.
Oh, that's a good question. It's quite some time ago. A lot of it had to do with like strength and conditioning.
Getting the body ready.
Getting the body ready, watching film, visualization. And so I guess this is actually quite perfect that you just asked that question. So this is where success leaves clues again. The same processes that made me successful in sport, or anyone successful in sport, are the same things you can implement in corporate or a business or your coaching or in your personal life. So you start off with a desire to get whatever result. Then you start visualizing yourself having that result. And then you take the actionable steps in between towards, you know, then you'll have the framework that you need, whatever you're missing within yourself, and then, you know, how to then exploit what you're already good at towards that goal. And then throughout that whole process, continually visualizing and doing the reps. So doing the processes, the practice. They say it takes 10,000 hours to become great at something. So being able to just repeat until you keep getting better and keep getting better. And that's where I guess where the pull is within yourself. So you have the desire to want to be somewhere, you visualize yourself as already being that person, and then you take all the actionable steps so you bring
to get there.
Get there, yeah. So that's the same thing that I did when I started working in the healthcare sector. I remember I went and had a coffee with the sales rep of the year before, and the highest winner.
You did the same thing.
I did the same thing. I just sat down with him and I had a coffee, and I was like, okay, now I have no idea what I'm doing. Like literally none.
Tell me.
I've worked in sales before, but I have no idea how this works. It kind of looks like you guys just walk around the office and then you like run, and I don't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
And he laughed because I've always been like, the only thing I know how to do is to be honest and be myself. Like, I guess it's like a thing where you like sometimes be a little bit political, not very good at it. So I just want to be myself. So then I, had the coffee, and he was like, this is what you need to do. He's like, the cool thing was like, he was like, don't sell for the first 6 months. I was like, what? And that's the funny thing as well.
I'm going to hit a target.
I know. He's like, the thing that you think you're supposed to do is contrary to the thing that you're supposed to do. So I thought, I've got to learn all my products back to front, and I got to start selling. I'm going to sell,
cross-sell,
everything. Yeah, exactly. How can I collaborate? What do I got to do? And he was like, don't do anything. He's like, you got to get a relationship with your customers. He's like, you don't have any permission to go and sell to them, like at all. He's like, they don't know who you are. They don't know what you've done. Like, it's not about you. Sales has got nothing to do with you. And you've always got to remember that. Sales has got to do with what the person, what the person needs and the result that they want. And so it was quite funny because that was his advice, the best sales rep. And then, and the people that weren't doing so well, get out there and sell. Go. You got to do this. You got to say, these are the exact words.
Let's do a script.
Yeah, exactly. This is the role play that we'll do, which works. after you got the relationship, but before the relationship, it's kind of like, I guess a good way, a lot of people like to say it is like dating. Like, you wouldn't go on the first date with somebody like, will you marry me? So why would you do that in sales? Like, if someone on a date with you, like, will I marry you? Like, where's the door? I don't even know what your last name is.
I'm happy just with appetizers.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. It's for me. I always try to make things a game, and it's trying to make things a game now. I've been struggling.
I can tell that you love it.
Yeah, it's good. My coach said to me, because I was like being really hard on myself, and this brings back to the the question about the time with Anders and my husband, and then work. Because sometimes I get frustrated. I'm like, can you guys just like go for a drive, go wherever? Because I'm like so obsessed. I'm like, I want to finish this, and like I want to go through the process.
I get it now. I'm seeing this. I get it.
Yeah. So she said to me when I was like, I'm not getting the result that I want. I'm getting so frustrated. I'm like, she's like, why don't you just switch up your mindset, Tanya? She's like, why don't you just make it a game? Like, instead of focusing on X target, just be like, how can I get this target by creating whatever game? So I've done that, and I'm like, oh, if I just make life a game, if I just make things a game, it's so much fun. I need to stop. Like, you need to, like, I think that's probably one of the best advice for people, when especially when you're getting overwhelmed. No one's getting out if you're alive. Like, we're all going to die. We've got a finite time. No one knows. Like, I read this morning, so sad. Shane Warne passed away.
Yeah, I saw about that. What happened there? I saw a quick tweet.
Which is really, like, it's just weird. Like, I don't know, my mind can't catch up with these things, because you're like, oh, he's so young. Like, how could that?
Yeah, 52, I believe.
Yeah.
And the spirituality bit. Sorry, Tanya. Like,
oh, that's right. Back to the question. So that's a little bit different. And I feel like I've been leaning more on my faith. I've probably been more spiritual in the perspective of like meditating and connecting with myself. And I feel like I'm using the word, like I use the word God more often than I used to use it, because I guess I didn't like step in the power of, I guess, because religion is a very personal thing, and I don't think that anyone should tell you how you should be spiritually or religiously. So a lot of the time I'll refer to God as a universe, or talk about things in a spiritual hippy dippy way that makes other people feel comfortable. But now I'm just like, as I get older, I'm like, I pray to God, I'm religious, I'm a Christian, so these are the things that are important to me. And when I say, yeah, I definitely feel that they're different. The connection between success leaving clues and the direction of where I want to go, or like where I feel like I'm pulled to. What about yourself? What do you like? How do you feel in terms of that question?
In terms of,
like, if you would think that success leaves clues or crumbs in terms of spirituality, do you think they're one and the same, or they're separated?
Wow, you're giving me a question to think about. I think, wow, you really hit me on the spot. I think from my experiences, I found that the best way is to let go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like you in a way, we're quite similar.
Mm-hmm.
A, B, C, D, you'll give me that. If I hit A, B, C, D, I will get E naturally, right?
Yeah.
And over the years, I realized it's A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, 10. There's a division sign, there's a minus sign. Yeah. So I always believe that you can go from A to Z. You visualize it, like what you said. Yep. The success will appears. If I do A to Z, I'm good. But then I realized that I've got 1, 2, 3. There's a plus sign over there. There's asterisks down in the bottom. There's a happy face on the left.
Yeah.
And then for some reason, there's a koala on the right-hand side. Because I realized that life can be so random.
Yeah, 100%.
And instead of me going, this is what I want, I'm going to get it, I've now taken a step back. I'm still hungry as ever to achieve. But at the same time, I know that I'm just going to focus on what I need to do. Whatever the outcome that results from it is out of my control.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to think about step 2, step 3, step 4. I'm always focused on step 1.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. So hence the question regarding, success leading crumbs, the role of spirituality in your life. I think they're very, very important. But for me nowadays, as I get a bit older, as I get hopefully a bit wiser, I'm really just focusing on day 1. That's it. I'm not thinking too much. I'm having a laugh. I'm not taking things too seriously. You mentioned earlier in the chat, Tanya, you mentioned there's the war going on. There's COVID. There's cancel culture, so to speak, where people can't really be themselves. There's so much out there where you can really lose yourself in that.
Yeah.
So what I do instead is that, I'm just going to focus it day by day. I'm going to retain me. And that leads me to the identity question.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about. That's so important. And when I was at my previous role, I lost myself. And I feel great now because I found me again.
Yeah.
And you mentioned, I know I'm sort of going around in a circle because that's a really lovely question.
No, not at all. I actually think it all actually connects. So mentioning that you've lost yourself in your previous role is kind of in the process of A to Z. You might have started your role or your previous company wanting X result. It's hard to keep over time. So when you mentioned about leaving healthcare, those processes work within a finite time, but if you don't, you need to then keep it up. So that's why it makes it difficult, because you do lose yourself. So from where I started at the beginning, where I was like you were right, there's all over the place.
It's never linear. It's never linear.
And that's where I guess the coaching helps. And that's why coaching is amazing, because you only ever take it up if you want it and you really want to get the result. The coach helps bring that, you bring back on the line to where you want to get to the result. And it's really important to have a laugh.
It is. Hey, Tanya, it's just you and I. Let's be honest, we probably had a chat for probably 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Clearly, like what we talked about last time when we had a chat and we met up, clearly the WeWork presentation we went to was absolutely riveting because I cannot remember a single thing. The only thing I remembered from that night was meeting you.
Yeah, and I remember laughing. It was very funny. Actually, it's funny because I'm getting flashbacks now. I remember where we were standing. Jacqueline and I went to my younger sister. We wanted to learn stuff sitting back, and we're like, let's get connected. And it's funny when you look back, you're like, wait, what? What did I learn? I learned how to laugh with Jeff. We just
it's so important to have a laugh, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think, getting back to your question, the more I get older, the more serious life becomes in terms of, as you know, responsibilities as a wife, as a mum, as a parent, as a business person, as a professional. These responsibilities, they just get bigger and bigger, right? And I found for me, the best way to cope is to not take it too seriously.
Yeah.
Because a lot of this is what we created this stuff, Tanya.
Exactly. And I think you just said it perfectly. We always have a choice. We always have a choice in our life. No matter how much we think we don't have a choice, we have a choice. And we've created with our minds or our actions exactly the position that we are in. And where a lot of people think, oh, why has this happened to me? Why does these things keep happening to me? And you know, you kind of know those people, like where everything's always doom and gloom and everything's so hard. And then there's like people like you, for example, where they're successful and they're having fun, they're having a laugh. They're just like on the outside, maybe on the inside to you, it's a little bit different. You're just like gliding through, like things just work out for you. And you're just like, whatever, it's all good.
So now when I see a koala out of the blue, Tanya, I give it a pat.
Yeah.
Why not? We give that koala a pat. It's so random, but it's so true. You know, the first thing that came to my head was a koala.
Yeah, that's awesome.
You know, I'm interesting. It's, you know how you mentioned coaching, right? And we talked about the linear path from A to Z. And as we talked about, sometimes it goes up, it goes down, it goes sideways, it goes everywhere, right? Now, if a person does not have access to a coach, what would you recommend to that person to help him or her bring it back into line?
Great question. So the cool thing is that most coaches have free parts to their program, and a lot of information that you can find is online. Well, actually, you can probably find everything you need online, and you'll find coaches at all different levels. When, you know, especially coaches starting out, if you want some support or help in whatever area, you can reach out to them and say, hey, I don't have the resources right now to employ you as my coach, but I would love some support. What if we did a barter trade? I did some testimonials for you, or I could do this XYZ for you to get the result. And again, YouTube is a fantastic tool. There's no such thing as lack, really. It's just a lack of resourcefulness. Money is just a tool that we use in exchange for whatever it is that we want. And you probably have some skills or some skill sets inside of you where you can look at things from a different perspective. Look at how you can use what you already have to get what you need. So obviously money is the fastest and easiest way to have that transaction, to get that result. And even still, like, you may employ the wrong coach and you feel like you've wasted money and you need to go get a different coach. That has happened. That has happened to me. And when people are employing people, because it's like, because the mindset shift is you're actually the person employing the coach. So you're employing them. They're not employing you. You're purchasing their product. You're getting that service. So if you don't have the monetary resources to do it, look at ways of how you can do it for free. YouTube's a great example. A lot of coaches will have tips and tricks on their Instagram or their Facebook or TikTok. I haven't got into TikTok. I remember when it first came out with my stepson, and I thought, I bet you this is probably going to be the fastest way to grow a following, because it's new. And because I don't know, within 3 hours or something, he had like 500,000 people look at one of his clips that he did. But then he ended up deleting it, because with a great following comes a great responsibility. And like you mentioned, cancel culture. I think it's important that we don't sell out just to get attention.
Interesting.
That's my point of view. So if you don't know, but there are a lot of people who have made the mistakes offline, then gone online, and then now they're delivering super impactful things with not needing any resources.
So sort of constraint brings about creativity.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that process too of not having the money, or not having even if you have the money but not using it, finding it a different way, like becoming creative on how to get what you need. Asking someone for a virtual coffee.
You won't know until you ask.
Exactly. 100% of the time people say no to a question that's never been asked. So if you don't ask, the answer's always going to be no. Sometimes you'd be surprised. I am still surprised. Like, here's a great example. When in 2020, I did a summit, and I wanted to get these big names on there. I sent Grant Cardone a email to his team, and then to someone else, and then his assistant CC'd him in. And he was like, oh yeah, Tanya, that sounds really good. Would love to do it.
Wow.
And he sent like his actual email address. I nearly fainted. And I was so excited. I was like, yes, I'm going to be able to interview him. And then he was like, my assistant will get you into my calendar and do the next process steps. I was like, okay, cool. So then she writes back to me and she was like, cool, Tanya. So that's going to be like 50,000 USD for a 1 hour interview.
Pocket change.
And I was like backpedaling. I was like, I'm a startup coach. So what can you guarantee if I was to raise the money? What can you guarantee that I would get from this interview? And they was like, oh, you get 1 hour of grant. I was like, yeah, but like, would there be any guarantees of getting any commercialization?
Would there be some sort of ROI?
And she was like, oh no, we can't guarantee that. We can't guarantee that. So I was like, well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you right back.
Lovely.
And I completely understand that that's what he charges. And I don't have, like, from his perspective, there's no, like, I don't have a big following, so he can't collaborate where he would then do that 1 hour for free because he would benefit from it. I was like, literally, there's no benefit for him, only the benefit for me to interview him to try and start building a following.
Hey, so, as long as you recognize that.
Yeah, so it was kind of awesome. It was awesome to get emails back. There's a few other like high profile names, and because I asked the question and I was like shocked. I was like, oh my gosh. They wrote back to say, hey, really sorry, in COVID times we don't have enough time. And
that's why we get along. I love the thinking.
Yeah, so I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. I was like, if I never have asked, then I would never, like, you know, in my mind, in a lot of people's mind, the answer is always no. But I was like, I just asked.
Yeah,
what's the worst thing to do? Not write back to my email? Like, delete? Who cares? Like,
yeah, don't worry about it.
So I think that's a really good tip in life. Like, no one cares about you and no one's thinking about you.
People will forget.
And they will forget. I mean, like I said, the war in Ukraine is on. My husband's finished. And he's of military age, and my stepson, if things get even more intense, then he by law has to go. Like, it's like quite intense for our family because things escalate. I mean, it's obviously intense for the world in general, but you know, I didn't want to, like, I never thought in my mindset that I'd even be thinking about the men in our lives would even potentially be going to any kind of war. Like, that just seems like we've already done that in history. Like, why would we repeat it? Can't we have a good negotiation? Like, can't you just have some luck?
But human nature never changes, Tanya, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that's the situation. So it's just about having fun in life and just trying your best, and some things works. People don't think about you, they get over it really quickly. You have to remind them. I think, you know, in business, I think they say 7 times is the amount of contact you need to have with someone before they were considered a purchase, whether it's conscious or unconscious.
It's interesting. I think fundamentally, you know, getting back to that, you know, the guy or girl who's deviated from that path, they just got to be open to learning, open to getting help, open to receiving feedback. Sorry, Tanya?
Yeah. Open to stumbling.
Open to stumbling.
Yeah. Failing. It's like, well, not fail. No such thing as failure. You're always moving forward. And just having a laugh, like when things don't work out. Like, I've done some, like, when I first started doing online videos, whatever, I'm trying to do more now on my social media. Gosh, I was like, I haven't deleted them on purpose because I laugh at myself. I'm like, that's so embarrassing. Like, what were you even saying? Because I was so nervous. And I'm like, okay, well, it's a step forward. I'm moving forward. So just don't take yourself seriously.
Yeah, exactly. I have a laugh. I crack jokes. I was actually speaking with the next guest who's going to appear in this podcast. And like what you shared with me, I haven't spoken to her for 16 years.
Wow.
And I said, you know what? Why not?
That's awesome.
So we had a chat yesterday, but getting back to your point, we just had a laugh. 2006 was when the Outcasts had the song Hey Ya, yeah. By the way. So I actually remembered that from 2006, and she remembered too. And, we talk about family, we talk about career, we talked about, succeeding in sales. We talk about your business, in terms of helping dental practices. We talk about your business in terms of helping athletes transition into the world. the common theme, it's people, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. And relationships.
It's simple, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And by all means, you and I, we've experienced quite a fair bit.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it does sound easy for us, but at the same time, you know, we anyone, whether someone's younger than us or older than us, you need to put your front foot forward, don't you, to get these experiences. And like what you shared, if you fall over, bury your face into the mud and have a laugh.
Exactly. I like the saying, simple scales, complex fails. And you can implement that anywhere in your life. So simple scales and complex fails. So when you make things more complex than they need to be, whether it's in your relationships, whether it's in your health, whether it's in your business, it's going to fail. Like, for example, people that have all these like complicated diets, you've got to measure all your macros and you need to have all this stuff. Just burn more energy than you put in. I mean, that's just as simple as that. Like, if you eat a piece of cake that's 500 calories and you then have to go onto the stepper to burn that 500 calories off, you don't need to go and get like 50 diet pills and fix it. Like, it's really that simple. Or in your business, like, you need more sales, find people to sell to.
But you know, we're in a society, Tanya, where we want the quick fix.
Yeah, which is actually more complex. So if you just always go back to basics, like you said, day one, I think that's the most important thing. It's always back to fundamentals, and the same in sport. Like, I guess that's the right word. So that's what one of, you know, when you asked me the question, what did that girl say to me about success? She said it was about fundamentals and foundation. Just always bring it back. And I remember one of my first business managers, my managers in my first corporate role, and he said it to me, like, Tanya, we need to build the foundation first. There's no point learning anything else until you understand the foundations of how this part of the business works. So don't make it complex. Don't make it hard for yourself. Make it easy. It actually is easy. It's about people, and it's about taking those steps.
People can be hard. Yeah, people can be hard. Yeah.
People can definitely be difficult. I mean, I guess they can be difficult, but if someone's too difficult or won't listen, then that's when they need to go on their journey to see the koala and the plus and the minus and the Z, you know what I mean? The negative Z's and the whatever. That is also part of the process.
And yeah, so just a side point, I think we've got the hoodie design for the Medium podcast. It's got to be a koala at the front.
I like it. I think that'd be perfect.
Yeah, koala. It's so random.
Kind and cuddly.
Yeah. It's have a laugh. Hey, sorry.
I said with fierce nails.
I know. And people have asked me whether I should have some sort of lightning round, and I said, you know what? Why not? I think there was any person that I'll do it on is someone I've met sort of recently. And true, my first memory of you and I was we just kept on laughing. So here's a question for you, Tanya.
Yeah.
If you can, okay, just remove all your preconceived notions, remove your experience. You've got a new slate. Mm-hmm. It's a blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
In an alternate world where Tanya is not in business coaching, she hasn't been conditioned to make that impact. I know it's hard to maybe answer, because how do you remove what's in your mind, right? In an alternate universe, what kind of work would you do? It could be a title, it could be a certain activity, it could be you in a certain location sipping a pina colada. What would that be?
That's a good question. Well, from a young age, before I knew any of this, I always wanted to be a lawyer or a doctor. But I don't know if that's like, I don't know. I wonder what I'd be doing.
Yeah, take your time. Take your time. Think about it. You know, would you be on the east coast of Sardinia catching fresh fish? Would you be trying to conserve the Galapagos turtles? Would you be the Prime Minister of Finland, for example? Anything.
It's a good question. I think it's really hard.
It's hard because I'm basically telling you to clear out what you've been thinking. There's going to be some sort of remnants of what you've been thinking naturally, right?
Yeah. I think from a young age, which I think it might be innately my personality, I've liked to do things and achieve things. So if I took away the conditioning of me creating programs where I make people's lives easier, because I've already gone through it. So, people exchange money to get information I know that has taken me years to learn, and all the heartache, so I can take away their heartache. I would think that I would be doing something still structural based.
Okay.
Because I have a hard time. I used to have a hard time back then, even then, like relaxing. I'm actually better at it now. But yeah, like when I remember I wanted to become a doctor, and I did. In Australia, we can do work experience, and I remember going to do it in a hospital. It's quite funny that I did it.
Wow, cool.
This older man had in the shower needed to be cleaned, and I didn't want to go in there and do anything. I was like, I stood outside. I was like, I can't do this. And then I did an experience in legal studies in the court. So I sat at the back of the court and watched the cases, and that got me really excited. I was like, so wow. So much. I was like, you can just like talk and like persuade people. So I guess in a way, maybe it's like conditioned from way back then. I was like, you can talk and persuade people to do whatever. And so then I'm in sales, so kind of similar thing.
Yeah. And
that's actually quite funny now I think about it, because I was in sales and healthcare. So I meshed the two. I don't know.
All right. It's a bit of a tough one, right?
I think we would be doing like innately something, fighting for better outcomes for people. Like I'm driven by relationships. I love to feel good. I love to have a laugh. I like to work hard. They're all the things that I've liked to do from
you want to achieve.
Yeah. So that's a hard question. Like would I be sipping turtles? Maybe if I met someone where that didn't make sense. But would I be sipping pina coladas on this, in Sardinia? Probably not, because then I would be.
You wouldn't be achieving.
And I'd be unhappy.
Interesting. So therefore, if I were to then ask you the question where you live to the lovely age of 80, 90, or whatever that you deem as the right age, where do you see yourself? Now, before you answer that question, right, try to visualize it for me. For example, there could be a table on my right. I'm looking at the sunset or whatever. Visualize it for me.
That's good. That's a good question. So I think as I get old, this is so awesome. My grandmother is 96 tomorrow.
Wow, lovely.
I found out what the date is. Yeah, the 6th of March is 96, and she's cheeky as ever.
Love it.
So I'm hoping, and my great aunt, she lived to 94, so I'm 95. So I'm hoping that I do have to 100. And my vision of myself is to be living in multiple locations. So having a place here in Australia where it's warm and nice, and then
give me a visual, like paint it for me.
Well, I've visualized. There's a place that I found up in Avoca. This amazing house. It's like this big house on land, and I always vision myself like walking into the door, and it's like big and breezy, and the smell, like the smell when you're near the ocean, it's like hits you in that wave, and
I'm seeing it, Tanya. Keep going. I'm seeing it. I'm at the door now. I can see it. I can smell it. Okay.
And there's a room, like this big room with sandstone on the right, and it's got a fireplace in there. And how it's like set up, it's got a bookshelf, and I like can see myself going, being in this location where I can have a fireplace and then go out, out to the pool and like go for dips and.
Wait. Is it currently daytime or nighttime at the moment?
I like to nighttime swim.
Okay, nighttime.
So
the ocean breeze.
Ocean breeze.
French doors, bookshelf, fireplace.
Exactly.
Okay.
The pool is all lit up.
Wow.
And I've got a nice glass of red wine and just relaxing, reading books and chilling out, listening to some music outside.
Are you by yourself?
Yeah, everyone's asleep. So I've got me time.
Lovely. Nighttime, a beach house.
You have your morning night times, your morning time in the morning. What I'm finding now is even though I'm so exhausted at night, I'm like, oh, I just need to have my time, like an hour to like, everyone's asleep. Like I can see everyone's asleep and they're safe, they're good, their needs are met. Now I can just chill out and do something that I want for an hour or two. It's annoying because it keeps going between an hour to two. You're like, oh, it's so good. And I'm like, it's midnight, I need to go to sleep.
For me, I do it in the morning. So,
yeah.
I wake up at 6. I try to get that 2-3 hours.
Yeah.
I think the body's telling me that another one's coming along.
Yeah.
And I need to get ready for it.
Yeah. You're such a good dad. You're such a hands-on dad. So your wife's a lucky lady.
I try to be. But for me, so I got a few gray hairs. I'm in a seaside town, Tanya.
Mm-hmm.
The premise I'm currently in is probably 4x2.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3-4 tables at the front. There's a small kitchen at the back. A local fisherman walks into the door, gives me the daily catch. No idea what it is.
Mm-hmm.
I look at it. I go to myself, okay, let me see if I can cook something out of it. The building's sort of run down. It's near the water. It's probably 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. It's pretty dark, but I know in about an hour's time, the sun will rise. My family's asleep. I'm by myself. I've got Michael Bolton playing in the background.
That's an unexpected choice.
Yeah, or Phil Collins.
Oh, cool.
I can smell the breeze. I can smell the ocean.
He's just saying that it just like transcends you.
The tables are pretty simple. The interior of the building is very bland.
Mm.
30 minutes later, I might decide I want to go to the markets and get the local produce.
Mm.
I bring it back. I start preparing. I still have no idea what I'm cooking. The kids come in, the wife comes in, friends come in, they come for a drink, have a chat with them. Business opens at about 11. I see a couple of tourists, I see a couple of locals. There's no menu, Tanya.
That's awesome.
If they ask me what's on the menu, I said, I don't know. Give me 5-10 minutes and I'll think of something. There's no price. I cook something. We have a chat, we have a yarn. That's how I see it. When time goes down a certain track.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's you saying that is very similar to my husband's dream of he'd love to have a small restaurant one day. And that just sounds so stressful to me. But it's like as you're describing it, I can see how much in love with that process that you are. I'm not a chef.
It's okay.
So that's
it's okay.
Not my specialty, but I admire so much people who have that creative flair and are able to deliver that. And it's awesome because it's about the happiness of yourself and then also making the people that come into your restaurant happy. This food is love.
And just between you and I, Tanya, I'm going to call the restaurant Koala.
I like it.
You know what I mean? So I think, you asked me the question about.
Sorry for interrupting. I need to. This has really stimulated my thought. I need to go and really work on my vision, because right now I'm so tunnel focused on the next 5 to 10 years. And they say, there's a billionaire that says, why don't you think about things differently? What if you can create your 10-year goal in 6 months? So what if I was able to do that? Then where then would I want to be? Because this is like one of the other points. It shouldn't always be about just achieving. It should be also about enjoying.
Lovely. I think that's a perfect way to sort of end this podcast. It shouldn't. So once again, it shouldn't always be about achieving. It should be just about living, isn't it?
Yeah. Thank you so much. I had a great time today with you.
I think we always do.
Yeah.
We have a laugh. We don't take things too seriously. So any final remarks, Tanya?
I think that's I think it just came out of my in the last sentence. I'm always so about achieving and serving, but you do need to slow down and make sure that you're serving yourself as well.
And enjoying life.
Enjoying life, laughing, having a bit of a giggle.
Have a yarn.
Having a cuddle of a koala.
I think it bit my finger the other day. But Tanya, a pleasure. Enjoy. Please send my thanks to your husband for taking Anders out for a walk.
Oh yes.
I was actually looking forward to a little man joining us onto a podcast. I thought that was pretty cool, and I'm more down for anything. But Tanya, once again, it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for joining me on this podcast.
Thank you.
And I will chat to you next time.
Awesome. Good luck with the next babe.
Okay. See you, Tanya.